right, we're here live at New York City Comic Con, having some fun, enjoying the sights and the sounds. But look what we found today. Headlocked Comics owner, Mike Kingston. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I mean, this is it's more of a marathon than a sprint, you know. So I'm just trying to survive at this point. By 5 o'clock tomorrow, I'll probably face down somewhere.
Of course, of course. It's been a day and a half in one day.
Oh no, it's actually been 2.5 days.
Oh really? Oh, yeah, my mind is scrambled, guys. My mind is scrambled.
This is what it does. I mean, I'm in the middle of trying to get my next book out, and I was working on formatting pages last night, and I woke up with my head on the desk. So, I mean, I think everybody here, vendor-wise, artists, or whatever, even fans, I think we're all kind of just running on fumes.
Oh yes. Tell me a little bit more about Headlocked Comics. What was inspiration?
So I was a fan of wrestling and comics my whole life, and nobody ever made the comic book I wanted to read. You know, it was always like wrestlers doing stuff other than wrestling, like Undertaker fighting demons and Kevin Nash as Mad Max and Ultimate Warrior stripping Santa Claus naked and chaining him to a fireplace, which happened in an Ultimate Warrior comic. You know, like it was like they didn't want to deal with wrestling itself, just the wrestlers, and I always wanted a book about wrestling, so I came up with a concept and I decided to do it myself. I started out with selling it out of my backpack in at wrestling shows. You know, I'd put on, like, I'm in this seat on a message board and whatever, and people would come buy my book from me, and you know, I'd work my way up to Comic Cons, and you know, now we have like the biggest wrestling booth at, like, you know, most Comic Cons.
And it's awesome. We've been looking at the names you have here, including the ones you have right now, and they're legends of wrestling, Attitude Era, and the Golden Age. You know.
So the crazy thing is when I started doing Headlock, not only was comics sort of like not cool with wrestling, like Comic Cons themselves were not cool with wrestling. Like we were probably the first wrestling thing at, I bet you, at least 20 shows. Like some shows out where had bans on wrestlers or wouldn't want wrestling or didn't want wrestling. So I would sort of, you know, backdoor my man, like, listen, I have a wrestling comic book. And they're like, all right, well, you can come to our show because you have a comic book. And I'd be like, well, I want to bring Jerry Lawler because Jerry Lawler does the cover art to my books. And they're like, well, he's a wrestler. I'm like, yeah, but he's an artist. And they're like, all right, well, you can bring him as an artist, but we're not going to promote him as a wrestler. We're going to promote him as an artist. And then we show up and we blow the doors off the place. And then the next year, everybody's booking wrestling. So, like, we open the doors for wrestling at a lot of Comic Cons. And one of the things, like, when I started going to cons, like, it always bummed me out because, like, I look at Comic Con as like it's like the church in Highlander, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's fandom should all have like a safe space, you know, but there was nothing for wrestling. You know, maybe you'd have a guy at an autograph table or something, but like there was never anything about wrestling or for wrestling. So, like, in addition to making Headlocked, which is, you know, a comic book about wrestling, like, I wanted to get to a point where I could have a space for wrestling fans to feel welcome at cons. You know, there should be something for everybody here, you know what I mean? Like, there is stuff for everybody, but there was nothing for wrestling. So that's the service I guess I try to provide at most shows. I try to have cool guests. We make cool art prints and comic book mashups, and we make shirts and all kinds of stuff, you know, and I just want to have a place for everybody should have a place where they can plant their old freak flag, and the wrestling fans can do it here.
Awesome. And we, as wrestling fans, we thank you for that. We thank you for knocking the doors down, you know what I mean, or demolishing them with a sledgehammer to make way for this era to happen for us. You know, we're actually see our legends out there, the fan favorites, so we can meet them, take some pictures, and get some autographs. You know, we thank you.
Hey man, I was a fan. I'm still a fan, and I want to pay homage to the legends, and I always wanted wrestling to have its sort of place, you know, alongside all the other fandoms. Like, the thing that always made me laugh was, you know, when I started doing Headlock, people would be like, you know, I don't know, you know, wrestling and comics, like, I don't know, it seems weird to me, but I'm like, so wrestling or comics are two-dimensional men in tights and larger-than-life characters in a battle of good and evil. So you're telling me that wrestling, being three-dimensional, larger-than-life men in tights fighting battles of good and evil, that extra dimension means it's not nerdy? Like, shit, it's nerdy. I don't know if I can swear on this.
Exactly, you can swear.
All right, good. Yeah, fuck shit, yeah.
Yeah!
But yeah, no, it's, you know, so, like, why isn't that nerdy enough? And it took a while. Like, people had, like, weird nerd blockage, and, you know, people were just like, oh, I like superheroes, but I don't like wrestling. I'm like, yo, wrestlers are real-life superheroes. So, I mean, Sergeant Slaughter is right behind us, and the man is literally a GI Joe. I mean, like, how awesome is that? I mean, he's a legend and a GI Joe guy, but I mean, like, that to me is, you know, that's what this is all about, you know. Like, I ain't in this to get rich. I mean, I still work a full-time job, like, to do all this, but, you know, like, I have the only wrestling booth at San Diego Comic-Con. I have the only wrestling booth here. I have the only wrestling booth at Emerald City Comic-Con. Like, some of the biggest markets, the biggest pop culture shows, like, we're the ones that are holding it down for the art form, man.
Awesome, man. We thank you again, man. Shoot. Who is your dream guest that you would like to have to come to be for Headlocked Comics?
I mean, we've had Flair, we've had Sting, we've had, you know, we had Hall and Ash at this show. I mean, Jerry does stuff for me, Christian. I mean, I don't even know if you'd call him a wrestling guest anymore, but, you know, I mean, it'd be cool if The Rock showed up.
Oh, of course.
I mean, I'd love to do something someday with John Cena. Like, I think he's an incredible ambassador for wrestling, and I mean, the man's like a real life superhero, and I think I've met him a few times, and he was always a super. I mean, for a guy that famous to be so gracious. I'd love to someday have Paul Heyman at a Comic-Con. I'd love to do
Bischoff.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about wrestling, the thing that I love, and I've collaborated with like 40 different wrestlers. Everybody's got a story to tell. If you know their name, they have some value, they have some story, they have some contribution. You know, from the tippy top guys to the bottom guy down there. You know what I mean? Everybody's got something cool about them, and you know what I mean. Like, I welcome that. Like, I love to celebrate. You know, any and all stuff. You know, at San Diego Comic-Con, we had Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers, because she owns WOW, which is a women's wrestling company. And we had, you know, so we had David McLean, who was the creator of Glow and now is the creator of WOW, and Jeannie Buss, and we had some WOW wrestlers, Tessa Blanchard and the Beast. And, you know, like, everybody, like, there's so many different parts of wrestling. I mean, we had, you know, one year at San Diego, we had like 14 people from Lucha Underground, you know. Like, we want to celebrate the whole art form, and that's what I try to do with Headlocked. That's what I try to do with our short stories. That's what I try to do with everything I do. Like, it's not just WWE or it's not just AEW or whatever. It's everything. It's Lucha. It's, you know, it's Joshi. It's everything. It's a little bit of everything, and, you know, I've always been trying to push the boundaries, because when I started, everybody would be like, wrestling is just WWE and comics is just superheroes. So we've been pushing what comics are with Headlocked, and you know, you want to push what wrestling is too with Headlocked and what we do. So, you know, open people's minds.
Exactly. And tell me a little bit more about the book you're coming out with.
So it's volume 4. It's called The Hard Way. Headlocked is the story of Mike Hartman, who's a college theater major who falls in love with wrestling, and he quits school, and it's sort of his journey through the wrestling business, starting on day 0. So, you know, we're sort of examining the craft of wrestling through the eyes of a performance artist, but at the same time, he's sort of navigating like the seedy underbelly of the wrestling business, just not really knowing what he's gotten himself into. And it's a lot of you know, what people do, what people sacrifice for their dreams, and along the way, like, he sort of meets all these people, and, you know, he's coming of age in a business with no structure, like in the Wild West, so to speak. You know, he's in his formative years, and, you know, essentially a blank slate. So he's sort of learning a little bit how to be a man, and so The Hard Way, there's a couple of different things at play here, but, you know, he's sort of trying to experiment a little bit with what kind of person he wants to be, you know, looking around the business, and he sees the type of people that are having certain types of success and how they carry themselves, and maybe he's trying to adopt some of those mannerisms and stuff, and you sort of see how that plays out for him. There's an incident in the first book that we refer back to that is very important, and we reveal that in this book, and then we set up for the next issue to be a banger. So
sweet, we can't wait for that one. And where can our fans find your comics and your books?
Everything we do is it's on the internet. It's Headlocked Comic. It's one word. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have a travelogue on YouTube called Comics, Cosplay, and Carbohydrates, where we film a lot of stuff from shows and some of the places that I eat and whatever. It's sort of a nerdy wrestling food show kind of thing. But yeah, everything's Headlocked Comic, and it's all run by me. So, you know, come say hey, man.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much to take away some time to come talk to us, Mike. And guys, check out Headlocked Comics. Buy the comics, check it out, and come by, man. Come by to San Diego. Come by to Emerald City. Come by to New York City Comic Con. Come meet the legends of the wrestling today. All right, guys. This is Vic from Drop Spotlight. We'll see you at the cons.